Ladies and gentlemen, there's a silent epidemic, one that doesn't scream or shout, but whispers in the back of our minds, "You're not enough." It hides behind perfectionism, procrastination, and self-doubt. It convinces brilliant minds to stay quiet, keeps dreamers glued to the sidelines, and tells leaders to shrink themselves for the comfort of others. Playing small serves no one. It's a phrase that sounds simple, even obvious, but few people truly grasp its depth. Every day, countless individuals hold themselves back, not because they lack talent, intelligence, or ambition, but because they fear the discomfort that comes with standing fully in their power. Somewhere along the way, they were taught that blending in was safer than standing out, that being modest meant making themselves smaller, and that success might alienate more people than it attracts. So they hide their ideas, tone down their voice, and keep their brilliance wrapped in hesitation. But the idea that playing small is harmless or even virtuous is a lie. It is not humility, it's self-denial. When someone with vision and value chooses to dim their light, the loss is not just personal, it ripples outward. Think of the inventions that were never built, the books that were never written, the communities that were never led. All because someone decided they weren't ready, worthy, or qualified. How many people suffer needlessly because the one person who could have made a difference decided to sit on the sideline? We often convince ourselves that staying small protects us from judgment, from failure, from the vulnerability of putting ourselves out there. But in truth, it creates a cage, a quiet, invisible cage where our potential rusts while we tell ourselves stories about why we haven't acted yet. We mask this in socially acceptable language. "I'm just being realistic," or "it's not the right time." But underneath, there's a silent belief. Who am I to take up space? Who am I to think I can lead, change, or create something important? This mindset doesn't just impact the individual, it limits everyone around them. When a person chooses not to speak up, the conversation suffers. When a leader holds back, a team flounders. When a visionary hesitates, an entire movement can stall. Playing small is not noble. It is withholding a gift that was meant to be shared. Everyone loses when brilliance is buried under fear and self-doubt. Children don't play small naturally. They dream with abandon. They speak their minds. They believe they can be astronauts, artists, or presidents without hesitation. Somewhere along the line, though, they learn to shrink, to stop raising their hand, to trade big dreams for safe routines. This conditioning becomes the mental script many adults carry for a lifetime, and unless we consciously rewrite it, we live in a loop of hesitation, always just shy of what we're capable of. The most tragic part is that so many people who play small are deeply aware of their potential. They can feel the frustration building in their chest. They sense the gap between who they are and what they're doing. It shows up as restlessness, as quiet envy when they see someone else doing what they secretly dream of. It shows up in late-night thoughts and what-ifs. And yet they don't move, not because they can't, but because they've been taught to think they shouldn't. Greatness is a decision, not a birthright. We often look at successful people, entrepreneurs, artists, leaders, and assume they possess some innate quality the rest of us don't. Tempting to believe they were born with more intelligence, charisma, or confidence. But when you peel back the surface, you realize that what separates those who rise from those who stay stagnant isn't talent. It's the choices they make. Every person who has ever accomplished something extraordinary started exactly where you are. Unsure, unpolished, and often underestimated. What changes the trajectory of a life isn't waiting for the perfect conditions or discovering a secret formula. It's choosing to act despite imperfection, choosing to think in terms of what could be instead of what is. The people we admire didn't wait for external validation. They didn't sit around hoping someone would tap them on the shoulder and say, "You're ready now." They made a decision to claim their space and move forward, even when they didn't feel completely prepared. And that decision to lean in, to show up, to take action is what forged their greatness. Waiting to feel worthy is one of the most damaging patterns a person can fall into. We tell ourselves we'll start the business when we're more experienced, share our art when it's perfect, speak up when we're more confident, but confidence doesn't precede action. It follows it. Every step taken in the direction of your goals builds the belief that you're capable, not the other way around. Greatness is built brick by brick with small, deliberate choices that compound over time. Not a lightning strike, it's a process. There is no special moment when greatness arrives. There is only the present and the decision you make in it. Do you act or hesitate? Do you speak or stay silent? Do you believe in the vision or believe the fear? The difference between those who make an impact and those who merely observe is not genetics or fate, it's mindset. It's a relentless refusal to settle for less than what you know you're capable of. Deciding on greatness means refusing to accept mediocrity as your ceiling. It means rejecting the belief that your past defines your future. Too many people disqualify themselves before they even begin. They look at their history, their upbringing, their limitations, and they use those as evidence that they don't have what it takes. But the truth is, everyone starts with some kind of deficit. What matters isn't what you lack, it's what you decide to do with what you have. Choosing greatness doesn't require permission. It doesn't wait for the stars to align or for someone else to open the door. It's an internal shift, a commitment to becoming the version of yourself that your vision demands. It's uncomfortable, yes. It stretches you. It forces you to confront every excuse and every old belief that says, stay small. But once the decision is made, everything changes. Not because the world changes instantly, but because you do. Your mind is the command center of your destiny. Everything you create, achieve, or fail to pursue begins in the space between your ears. The thoughts you entertain, the beliefs you repeat, and the mental images you hold. These are not fleeting ideas, they are blueprints. Your external reality is more often than not a mirror of your internal dialogue. People tend to underestimate the power of thought because it's invisible. And just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't shaping every choice you make, every path you take, and every limit you accept. The mind doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality in the way we might think. When you dwell on fear, rejection, or inadequacy, your body reacts as though those things are happening right now. Your energy changes, your posture shifts. You hesitate, retreat, and sabotage opportunities. Not because something bad has happened, but because your thoughts have convinced you that it will. On the other hand, when you feed your mind with purpose, confidence, and clarity, you move through the world with certainty. Doors seem to open not because of luck, but because your inner world is aligned with action, as if confidence is already yours. This is one of the most powerful mental shifts a person can make, yet it's often misunderstood. Confidence is not a magical feeling that arrives at the perfect moment. It doesn't descend like lightning, blessing you with fearlessness before a big decision or bold move. Instead, confidence is a byproduct of action. It's built brick by brick through repeated experience, risk taken, and the willingness to move forward even when you're uncertain. Waiting to feel confident before you act is one of the most reliable ways to stay stuck. The truth is, most people who appear confident weren't born that way. They didn't start with unshakable belief. They started with action. Sometimes clumsy, sometimes awkward, but action nonetheless. Over time, as they moved through discomfort and proved to themselves that they could survive uncertainty, confidence began to emerge. But the spark that ignited that process was the decision to act as if they were already capable. They didn't fake it in a shallow, performative way. They stepped into the mindset of someone who had already done the thing they feared. They borrowed from their future self and moved from that place. There's a fundamental difference between arrogance and earned confidence. Arrogance pretends to know everything and refuses to grow. Confidence says, I don't know everything, but I'm willing to try. That willingness to show up, to be seen, to attempt something without guarantees is what truly creates strength. You don't need to have everything figured out to begin. You just need to start operating as if you believe you can rise to the challenge. When you act as if confidence is already yours, you begin to carry yourself differently. Your voice steadies. Your posture improves. Your decisions become more decisive. Others respond to this shift often before you fully believe it yourself. The world mirrors back the energy you put out, and when you start to move with a sense of inner conviction, people treat you accordingly. This creates a loop. You act confident, people respond to you with respect or interest, and those responses reinforce your internal belief. The mistake many people make is waiting for external validation before stepping into their full power. But the most effective validation is self-initiated. It's the moment you decide, I belong here, even if the room feels intimidating. It's the choice to speak up, not because you know you'll be praised, but because your voice matters. Confidence grows every time you override the impulse to retreat. Imagining yourself as already confident isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about uncovering the version of you that already exists beneath the doubt. It's about moving from potential to expression, even if your hands shake in the process. The feeling of certainty will come, but only if you give it a place to grow. That begins with action, not after you feel ready, but before. Especially before, because the path to confidence is paved with courage, not certainty. See your vision as more real than your doubts. That is the key to turning ideas into action and dreams into results. Every major achievement begins as an invisible thought. It doesn't exist in the world yet. It exists only in the mind of the person who dares to believe in it. At that early stage, vision and doubt compete for dominance. Doubt points to the lack of proof, the risks, the unknowns. It speaks in the voice of past failures and current limitations. But vision speaks in possibility. It draws from imagination, purpose, and belief in something greater than what currently exists. The challenge is that doubt feels familiar. It's been rehearsed so often it seems more real than the vision you're trying to build. Doubt presents itself as logic. It sounds responsible, mature, and safe, but safety is not the same as progress. Most people allow their doubts to win, not because they aren't capable of success, but because they've invested more energy in reinforcing their fears than in building their vision. They've imagined everything that could go wrong so many times that failure feels inevitable, even before anything has started. To reverse this, you have to intentionally give more attention, energy, and emotion to your vision than your doubt. You must learn to mentally live in the outcome you desire, to picture it so vividly that it starts to feel like memory rather than fantasy. This isn't daydreaming, it's strategic. Athletes visualize the win before they ever compete. Performers rehearse success in their minds before they step on stage. Visionaries see the finished product before the first step is taken. That inner clarity becomes a compass that directs their actions, decisions, and persistence. Seeing your vision as real doesn't mean ignoring obstacles. It means you trust that your vision is worth navigating those obstacles for. You expect resistance, but you no longer see it as a stop sign. Instead, you treat it as part of the journey. When your vision is strong enough, it generates momentum. It becomes a source of strength you can return to when circumstances get hard, when the path isn't clear, or when results take longer than expected. Many people quit on their dreams not because they lacked ability, but because they didn't stay connected to the feeling of their vision. They let fear pull them out of alignment. But vision must be felt, not just thought. It has to live in your body, not just your mind. You must see yourself walking through the doors you want to open. Hear your voice delivering the message you were meant to share. Feel the pride of accomplishing what once felt impossible. The more you feed your mind with those images, the more your subconscious begins to believe it's possible and even likely. Your brain is constantly looking for direction. If you don't give it one through intentional vision, it will default to old programming, fears, and doubts. This is why it's essential to revisit your vision daily, not passively but actively. Let it become your default setting. Let it become more real, more familiar, and more powerful than the doubts that try to compete with it. Answer fear with boldness. Fear is one of the most persistent forces we encounter when striving for anything greater than our current reality. It disguises itself in many forms: hesitation, anxiety, overthinking, even perfectionism. It tries to make us believe that staying still is safer than moving forward. But the truth is, fear isn't a signal to stop. It's a sign that what you're aiming for actually matters. The presence of fear often means you're standing at the edge of something important. And the only thing powerful enough to meet it head-on is boldness. Boldness doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means the decision to move anyway. It means taking the first step when your hands are shaking and your voice isn't steady. It's the willingness to show up imperfectly rather than waiting for the perfect conditions that never come. Most people let fear become the loudest voice in their mind, but boldness is a muscle that can be strengthened. The more you act in spite of fear, the more it begins to lose its power over you. Every bold move builds a new reference point, a moment you can look back on and say, I did that even though I was afraid. Fear asks, what if you fail? Boldness answers, what if I succeed? Fear whispers, you're not ready. Boldness replies, I'll get ready as I go. These answers don't come from arrogance. They come from an inner commitment to growth. Boldness isn't about being loud or aggressive. It's about being rooted in your purpose, even when that purpose challenges your comfort zone. It's about aligning with your potential rather than your excuses. One of the greatest lies fear tells is that something terrible will happen if you take a risk. But what it doesn't show you is what's lost if you don't. The loss of opportunity, the loss of time, the slow erosion of self-trust. When you continuously back down from the things that scare you, you start to distrust your own ability to follow through. But when you lean into bold action, you rebuild that trust. You prove to yourself that you are capable, not in theory, but in practice. Boldness also creates momentum. When you take one daring step, it leads to another. You speak up in a meeting, and the next time it's easier. You launch a project, and the next challenge feels less intimidating. Each act of boldness expands the boundaries of what you believe is possible. Over time, what once terrified you becomes your new normal. You're no longer reacting to fear, you're leading with courage. The moment you decide to answer fear with boldness, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting for reassurance and start creating it. You become someone who acts, who initiates, who leads. Fear may never disappear completely, but it stops controlling you. It becomes background noise instead of a steering wheel. You begin to realize that the bold version of you, the one who takes the leap, who says yes, who shows up, is not a fantasy. That version already exists. It just needs to be chosen again and again, one brave decision at a time. There's a difference between humility and invisibility. Humility is grounded and confident. It doesn't require shrinking. In fact, true humility means recognizing that your gifts were never just for you. They were meant to be shared. When you withhold them, when you choose silence instead of speaking up, safety instead of risk, passivity instead of leadership, you're not serving anyone. You're simply making yourself smaller so you don't have to confront the possibility of judgment, failure, or growth. The world does not benefit from your silence. It doesn't move forward because you stayed quiet in a room where your voice was needed. Your talent doesn't help anyone if it stays in your head or in your journal. Playing small may feel safe, but it comes at a cost. The cost is unrealized potential, missed opportunities, and a quiet frustration that builds over time. You start to feel like something is missing. Even if everything looks fine on the surface, that feeling doesn't go away, it grows. People often wait for a signal that it's okay to go bigger, but that permission has to come from within. The moment you stop confusing playing small with being humble is the moment you begin to reclaim your purpose, because real service to others comes from standing tall, not shrinking back. It comes from taking up space with intention, not ego. It's knowing that by being fully expressed, you give others permission to do the same. When you step into your power, you're not saying, I'm better. You're saying, I'm here to contribute at the highest level I can. That's not arrogance. That's responsibility. And it requires courage. It's easier to blend in. It's easier to defer to others. But easy is rarely fulfilling. The people who make a real difference are those who refuse to hide, not because they want to be praised, but because they understand that playing small helps no one, not themselves, and certainly not the people they're meant to serve. Your future self is waiting for you to catch up. That version of you, the one who is bolder, clearer, more aligned and unshakable, already exists in potential. It's not a fantasy, and it's not a distant hope. It's a reality that begins the moment you decide to align your present actions with your future vision. The gap between who you are today and who you're meant to become is not measured in time, but in decision. Every moment offers a choice: to move closer to that version or to delay the journey one more day. Most people underestimate how much of their future is shaped not by grand events, but by small, consistent choices made daily. It's not about waiting for a major breakthrough or a life-changing opportunity. It's about recognizing that every decision, what you say yes to, what you tolerate, what you believe about yourself, either builds or breaks the bridge to your future self. And that future self is not passive. It's calling you forward. It's the voice that urges you to speak when you'd rather stay quiet, to act when you'd rather wait, to rise when it would be easier to shrink. There's often a temptation to postpone action in the name of preparation, to tell yourself you're just not ready yet. But readiness is a moving target. If you wait until you feel completely prepared, you'll wait forever. Your future self is not waiting for perfection. It's waiting for your commitment. It's waiting for you to say, enough with hesitation, enough with playing it safe. I'm stepping in. That step, even if it's small, changes the momentum of your life. Because you're no longer moving from fear or doubt, you're moving from alignment. It's easy to get caught in the loop of your current identity. You know your routines, your limits, your comfort zones. They feel familiar, even if they're frustrating. But growth requires disruption. Your future self does not operate with the same mindset as your current self. It doesn't settle for excuses. It doesn't negotiate with procrastination. It sees clearly what's at stake and acts accordingly. And the more you tune in to that voice, the one that already knows what you're capable of, the more power you reclaim from the habits and stories that have kept you small. Visualizing your future self is not just a motivational exercise, it's a strategy. When you can see that version of you clearly, how they walk, think, decide, lead, you create a mental roadmap. Your brain starts looking for ways to embody that identity now, not someday. You begin making choices through the filter of who you're becoming, not who you've been. And that shift creates a new standard for your life. You no longer measure success by survival or acceptance. You measure it by alignment, by how closely your actions reflect the future that's already yours in potential. The gap between where you are and where you want to be closes each time you make a decision that reflects your future, not your fears. That's the quiet revolution. Choosing the identity of the person you are becoming again and again until your present catches up with your potential.